Welcome to Decaf with the Beacon Center. I am Taylor. This is Mark. And for those of you who are new listeners, what we do on Decaf is we talk about everything, and our boss kind of hates that, but he also kind of loves it. We talk about Tennessee policy. We talk about things going on in the United States. We talk about sports, talk about pop culture. Mark gives me a hard time. That's just what we do. Did I leave anything out, Mark?
Yep, that should be it. It's about right.
Yeah. Mostly, and it's mostly Taylor hate. We actually, at the beginning of the podcast, kept a count of how many times Mark insulted me per podcast. And it was pretty high. We were reaching double digits there for a little while. You've softened though. I think getting married.
Insult your opinions mostly.
Yeah,
and your personal decisions, not you personally.
Yeah. My personal decisions as to like who I date. Mark really has a lot
what kind of sweatshirt you wear, for as an example.
Yeah, Mark hates my SEC sweatshirt. And you know
I just don't know who wears a conference sweatshirt. It's like, oh man, like that's like, should I have like a North America sweatshirt? I don't know. It's just so weird to have a conference. Like you have a team that you cheer for. That's who you do.
Went to the SEC tournament last year. Got a cute sweatshirt. Sue me.
Okay. Get an Alabama sweatshirt that says, it can say SEC tournament and say Alabama on it. That's who you cheer for. You don't cheer for a conference. They definitely have those.
Well, I didn't see them. If they did, I didn't see them. Anyway,
I actually bought one of those like 4 years ago when I won an Alabama SEC tournament t-shirt.
Okay, well, they didn't have it when I went, so whatever. Let's talk about something that we did that we can agree on for once. Mark and I went to Memphis this week, and Memphis is a little underrated. I had a great time. We got there, we had lunch with one of our friends who lived there, and then we had our main event, which was our listening tour. And we talked about our listening tour a little bit on the podcast already, but basically what we're trying to do is go around the state, talk to real people, figure out what's bothering them and what we can fix. And so in our policy agenda in years going forward, we will be talking about these issues that people want fixed. Things like the roads are terrible. Things like people's children don't have the opportunity to go to other schools because either there's no formal school choice programs or there's no open enrollment in certain counties, things like that, where we kind of think in our heads this might be a big issue, and we're really just going to get either affirmation or to get completely shot down that we think that these things are a big deal, and they may be or they may not be. Mark, what were some of the things that stood out to you at the Memphis listening tour?
Well, first of all, you're right. I mean, like Memphis is I got to spend 3 days there. And like, it really is just an underrated city. They have such good food, and there's so many kind of cool hole in the wall, like bars and restaurants and stuff. It's just like, it's a cool city. So yeah, we had a great time there. And I think that even to kind of maybe correct you a little bit, I am trying to go in with I don't want to have any idea what these people are thinking. I'm trying to go with a completely open mind where I have no concept, because I think we've realized that, things that are important to me or you may not be important to other people. So I know what I think other people think, but that's kind of part of this whole process, is that we want to figure out what other people actually think. And that's why we're doing this, because we don't want to kind of put our opinion of what they think into that. So it's cool to get these results. And I think some of them, if we're being honest, are what we thought, and some are completely opposite. I'm like, I never even thought of that. So it was just a really cool experience. It was, we're not gonna give away too many of the results. We were trying to work that all in, but you had just a dynamic group of people in Memphis. There were some really, respectful arguments, some fun discussion. You had kind of people you had people from all these different backgrounds at school. I mean, there's different age groups. There's a lot of different racial demographics, probably different political opinions there. And it was just a very cool, but everyone was polite, and it was such a cool conversation that, obviously you were there. It was like, it was explosive, but in a good way. It's like, there's so many different opinions out there. And, you had people who were maybe pretty far left agreeing with people who were kind of far right on certain issues. And then people who are on the same side disagreeing on issues. And it just shows, I think the biggest takeaway I have, without talking about the specifics, is that this whole party thing that we have, this political identification, it just isn't really relevant to a lot of people, because when you talk about certain issues, there's a lot of consensus among people in different parties, and there's a lot of disagreement among people in the same party. Yeah. It really is an issue by issue thing. If we can kind of separate from this, us versus them mentality, we have a lot more in common than we think. That's kind of what I took from it.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. And I, some of the things that I went in, it's hard for me to turn my brain off, but some of the things that I went in thinking would be brought up as a big deal No one said a word. And so I think that that's very, very telling as to where people's hearts and minds are when they're thinking about their families, their kids, their finances, everything under the sun, the things that really affect them, and the things that they think about every single day. Some of the things that I think that they are thinking about, it doesn't align at all. And so it's a really valuable tool that we've been able to create, to give people just a chance to talk, and then to give our team insight into the actual communities that we're serving.
What's interesting too is that we talked about Memphis. One thing that, if we would have guessed what was going to be, not one person out of 12 people putting their top 3 to 5 issues brought up crime. That was not an issue on anybody's mind, not even one time. And I think, from far away, you're like, oh man, Memphis has a huge crime problem. And not to say they don't have a problem, but that is not at the forefront of people's mind. Everybody care. I mean, again, I will share this. Everyone's number one thing was the economy and inflation, and how every single one and how it's affecting me. And, people might blame different things, but that was, the economy was number one in everyone's mind and their financial situations.
And so that'll be interesting, for us at Beacon. We can't really do much about the federal rate of inflation and how prices are rising, but we can do things to make the burden easier on people who live here. And we're already in a really great spot with no state income taxes, but there are things that we can do to make the blow a little bit less on people living in Tennessee. And so that's what we're going to be brainstorming on over the next year, is what are those solutions? How can we implement them? What do we need to do to get there? And just really keeping at the forefront of our minds as people that we serve, because it really is all about them. I say it all the time. When you think about these issues that are being debated all the time at the Capitol, everyone has a special interest group. Everyone's got someone representing them, except just taxpayers. And that's what we do, is we go up and we represent just people who are just trying to live and prosper and succeed in Tennessee. And so being able to listen to them with no agenda, no list of issues on the board that we say rank these, let them actually tell what is important to them. I think that's really crucial for what we're doing.
It was just a very cool experience. And I mean, it's, and again, we had a lot of, I guess I don't know the exact breakdown. I mean, it was certainly more, left leaning than right leaning, but it's like every single person had the same number one. It was all finances in some way, and inflation. So it is interesting that, there's a lot of common ground among what actually is affecting people's lives. And it's going to be up to Ron and our, policy, and also to be creative on what policies can we work on that are, aligned with our free market perspective, but can really help these people in the state. So that's going to be kind of the second part of it. And, I'm excited to be doing this part and making Ron think of the actually creative policy solutions to it.
We do love a challenge. And by we, I mean Ron. So can't wait.
Well, we love that he has a challenge. I don't know if he loves it, but it's really good to get everyone thinking outside the box.
Poor Ron, he's going to listen to this and think, oh no, he's going to have to hibernate for the summer. So I woke up this morning to a text from Suzanne, our coworker, that made me actually laugh out loud. Elon Musk wants to buy Twitter. Okay, let me just say, for people who don't know me personally, I love trolling people. It is one of my favorite things to do. I love, and this is going to make me sound like a really mean person, and I don't mean this in a mean way, but I like using people's words against them, not to cause them harm, but to make them laugh and to make everyone else laugh. Like, I like to make jokes and to troll people. Elon Musk is the world's greatest troll.
He really is.
He bought a little bit of Twitter and people freaked out.
Well, to be clear, not a little bit. He is the biggest stakeholder in Twitter at 9.2%.
But percentage wise, it is a sliver.
But he is he gets to make the most decisions. He has the most impact. So yeah, it wasn't like he bought like one share. I mean, he is the main holder of Twitter now. Yes.
But holistically, it's a small percentage number.
10%. Yeah.
People absolutely lost their minds. And he said, okay, I won't go on the board. I won't go on the board. Better yet, I'm going to come back and buy the whole thing. That is a brilliant troll. That is so funny. And I don't know if he has the financing. I don't know how it would work. I don't know if he's serious about it or if he's just trying to make people's heads explode. But man, from one troll to another, that was beautiful.
Well, first of all, he made the offer. It's like he's filed with the FEC, so that it is not a troll. I mean, it might be a troll, but it is. He put the money out there. And I actually really liked what he said, though. It's like, he's like, this has the greatest, chance, Twitter does, to be a free speech, nothing but free speech here. So like, no censoring people you don't agree with. It should be completely free speech. And I think Twitter has an ability. It's not right now because of all the things that they've done where they're censoring, a lot of people on the right or opinions they don't like. But it's cool that he's doing that. And the best thing I saw, which it really insults both parties, but there's a guy who I don't care for much. His name's Joe Walsh. He used to be a Republican. Then he's like, he's the worst most of the time. Yeah. But he did this thing. He said, the right, Twitter isn't fair. Government must do something. The left, Twitter's a private company. It sets its own rules. Elon Musk threatens to buy Twitter. The left, oh my God, stop this. Government must do something. The right, Twitter's a private company. So it's like, you really do see this whole, it's only about, for
People
a lot of the political parties, what helps them. That's all they care about. And they don't have principles. They don't have this. And it's funny to see because I actually, again, the only time Joe Walsh has maybe been right in the past 4 years, but it was awesome that he said that.
He was right. People are imploding. And it's funny. And now, trolling, for me at least, does not mean diabolical kind of intent. I'm not a bully, but I do love trolling. And I don't think that Elon Musk is being a bully here. I think he's literally like, oh, you freak out over this? Wait till I show you this. It's just so funny. And it's funny to watch people's reactions, because if you are a free speech absolutist like he is, you think that this is a really great thing. And if not, I can't really help you, because if you don't agree on free speech, then there's probably not much that you and I agree on. And so I can't really sympathize with you. I can't really help you. I think that this is going to be, if he does it, part of me hopes that he just takes, like, I have in my head a picture of like a big light switch on the wall that controls all of Twitter, and he just pulls it down and shuts the whole thing off. It's like, I know it's like a cartoon, but
I also think that, like, it is, I do agree with you kind of in it being a troll, but he's also a good businessman. He's not putting this money in here thinking it's going to lose money. Totally. And it's like, and it is funny, all the people threatening to leave Twitter, it's like, please leave. It would be so much better without you here. And this whole, and again, this whole idea of, Elon Musk as this right-wing extremist. He is not a right-wing extremist. He is, again, he dated a communist. He is, at best a moderate that cares about free speech. So it's like, it's insane to say that he's like, and just because he might want to reinstate Trump, he wants to reinstate everybody. He doesn't think people should be banned from there. And that's the whole point of it. So I hope he buys it. I think he's awesome.
He's like a single issue kind of voter, I would think, about free speech. Like he is all in on free speech, and I think it's pretty cool. He's putting his money where his mouth is, quite literally, and trying to purchase Twitter. And I'm interested to see if it happens. What are the changes that the platform will make? How many people? It is funny though, all the people that say I can't be part of Elon Musk's company, I'm quitting Twitter, and all of the comments, all the reply tweets are like, bye.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's like, it's amazing the power people think they have, especially online. They're like, oh, I'm not following you anymore after that comment, or oh no, I'm not gonna work with him. Like, guess what? Nobody cares. He can replace somebody super quickly, and nobody, it doesn't matter. Nobody cares about you. In either way, I love all these protests that are just to basically get attention for yourself. Nobody cares. You just want to say, oh, look how brave I am. I'm leaving this person because, oh my gosh, Elon Musk has said he wants free speech. Can you believe that? Like, what a bunch of just morons. Good. I mean, I hope that nobody ever hires them. And it's just, it's the same people on the internet. Those are real trolls, like bad ones. Like, oh, I'm not following. One of the best lines I see, somebody said, oh, I'm not following you anymore I don't even remember what it was. And then somebody said, like, it's not an airport. You don't need to tell people you're departing. So like, nobody cares. And that was, so I just love that. It's like, nobody cares. And I don't care about either side. It doesn't matter why you're unfollowing them. It's just like, if you don't like them, just leave. You don't need to make a whole announcement and make a big deal about it.
Just leave, just unfollow, quit Twitter.
Just do your job. You don't have to yell about it. That's right.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about it. We don't need a PSA. It was kind of like all the PSAs when it was like, this celebrity, that celebrity has been diagnosed with COVID-19. It's like, just let them do their thing. Just let them heal. We don't need to talk about it. We don't need to talk about all these personal decisions. If you're sick, best of luck to you. Have some soup and take some Tylenol. If you quit Twitter, best of luck to you. Hope you find a new job or a new platform to spew your opinions on. I really couldn't care less, but it
And it
is.
feels like similar to the liberal celebrities that are going to go to Canada after the Trump won election, right? It's
Sure.
like a lot of people saying that. I would be interested to see how many people actually follow through with leaving Twitter. Because
I
again,
would,
nobody's saying, and this is the most interesting part, nobody's saying they're scared that Elon Musk is going to censor that. That's not what they're saying. They're saying that they're just scared that he's going to let other people have voices.
which that's the most insane thing I've ever heard.
I know. I agree. I mean, it's wild.
Imagine if you brought back like Alexander Hamilton and George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, who were all censored by the King of England a long time ago for their beliefs, and they came to America to say, yeah, we're not doing this. And then you ask them, even with a private company, it's not even government, even with a private company, I assure you that what they would say is, it is a slippery slope to try to start taking people's voices away. I promise you that is what they would say. And so it's interesting to see how America has evolved from free speech, no matter the cost. They fought a war over it, to your words hurt my feelings. I have to go. You can't speak anymore. It's just
Yeah.
insane.
Here's the thing is like, that's okay. I have to go is fine. You can't speak anymore is the problem, right? Like
Exactly.
nobody's arguing with your, like, get off nobody cares if you get off Twitter. Do it. Like, you have the right to do that, just like they have the right. And again, as much as, I think a lot of conservatives would hate to hear this, Twitter has the right to do what they're doing now. They're allowed to silence conservative voices, and I don't like it, but they're allowed to do it. And if Elon Musk buys it, if he wants to silence liberal voices, fine. I don't agree with it, but that's not, it doesn't matter.
It's not here nor there. And we're never going to be able to legislate this mindset that you and I have of people need to just shut up and mind their own business. We'll never be able to legislate that.
They legislate the opposite. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But what we can do is point out the stupidity and hypocrisy of it. And that's what we will do.
But we're on the same page that we definitely both want Elon Musk to buy Twitter, right? That would be awesome. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Like expert troll move, like in the troll hall of fame, the Twitter troll hall of fame, buying Twitter to mess with the haters is definitely the best one.
I would also maybe actually get a personal Twitter and use it, because I would actually be way more interested if there was actual speech on there. Like, I'm not somebody who's like, I'm not saying, oh, in protest, not doing, like, I'm just not that interested. But if it was a real free speech platform, I might be more interested in actually doing it.
I know. And then we could unfollow all of your basketball accounts from the Beacon account, because every time I get on Beacon's account, it's just like mid-major madness and like all these like
First of all, I love
accounts.
mid-major madness. And but what I think is funny, honestly, mid-major madness is the best Twitter follow ever if you like kind of mid-major basketball. But the funny thing about it is, yeah, I don't have my own Twitter. I do have my own Twitter, but I kind of don't use it. So I go on there, I think I'm following things from mine. And like, there's like 20 follows that we do on Beacon of just like jazz players, stuff like that. And like, and I'm like, oh, I don't even realize that. And I go on there to do that. So yeah,
but it honestly helps me because I follow all of the like Tennessee news sources from my personal Twitter. And so sometimes when I get on, if you didn't follow those jazz accounts, I might think that I was on my personal one instead of the Beacon one. But we're definitely on Beacon when I see jazz players.
Yeah, or if you understand what the Akron, Kent State, who the good players in that game, like, mid-major madness is something that we're tweeting, that we're watching.
Yes, exactly. Oh gosh, it really is. If y'all only knew the chaos that I put up with working with Mark, you would try.
This is because I'm not as hip. Like, I don't have my own Twitter. That's the only reason I do, but like, I don't know how to use it that well. I know how to tweet, and that's it. So like, I just don't realize when I'm switching, which is good that I don't tweet, because otherwise there'd be a lot of jazz tweets coming from me.
Scared. We would all be so scared. Speaking of jazz tweets, happy Mark's best week of the year, which is the NBA playoffs have started. Now, I know nothing about this. I had a great week last week with the Braves and the Masters and watching my guy Scotty. He's a good Christian man, and his sweet caddy just winning the Masters in a massive victory with a few great hits by Rory late in the game. But Mark, it is your turn to geek out on your sports. This is your time to shine, brother.
Can I say this also about Scheffler? Great golfer. I didn't think anything of the way he looked. I'm like, oh, like whatever. He's a normal looking guy. He is 25. I thought he was 40.
I know.
He does not. I mean, again, he looks a lot older than he is.
And you know what? I think that winning 4 majors in a year, like 4 majors in 6 starts, and the stress that comes with that, will do it to you.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, it's not like he looks bad. It's just like he looks like he's 40, and I'm like,
He looks like an
okay,
adult.
I would never even think of. He just looks like a normal guy, and I'm like, oh, well, he's 25. Wow.
He is my little sister's age, and he looks like a parent. Like he
Oh,
looks like an
yeah,
adult.
he looks like a father, like a 14-year-old at least.
Yes, yes.
I mean,
has
he
a
honestly kind of
smile.
like, yeah. So either way, it's not an insult. It's more like, wow, I can't believe he's. I mean, I guess it is a little bit. You're saying like you look older than you are, but it's
But
crazy that he's 25.
he's got a lot of good golf ahead of him. I mean, if he's
Oh, I'm
doing
sure.
this,
And the thing
great.
is, some of those people who look older don't really age. So by the time they're 50, they still look like they're 50 or 40.
Yes.
So hopefully that
Yes.
happens with him.
Yeah.
Yes, the NBA playoffs are starting, and the Tennessee tie-in is that the Memphis Grizzlies have been incredible this year. They've kind of been probably the team that's exceeded expectations the most. They are the number 2 seed in the Western Conference, which is a huge deal. Like, so they have a legitimate chance of winning the NBA championship. I don't think they will, but when I was in Memphis, I went to a couple of bars and it was, I mean, it was electric. And everyone's like, this is the year that, like, you know, they kind of had their first step last year. They made the playoffs. They gave the Jazz a series, and now they're, now they're 4 spots ahead of the Jazz in terms of like where they're seated at. So it's going to be really cool to see what they do. They have a fun kind of the future of the NBA is in this first round series. The Timberwolves and Memphis, like 2 of the 4 youngest teams in the league, all very good. Like not there probably quite yet, but it's going to be cool to see. You know, you have the Suns who are great. You have the Nets who have all these stars, and then you have the Jazz who have kind of disappeared, but they're going to have a good first round matchup in Dallas. And I think they're going to win that, and we'll see what happens. So I'm very excited. I think it's wide open, that's a cool thing when you talk about pro sports. Baseball's the same way with the Braves won last year. Sometimes, it's like, oh, this team is definitely going to win, and it's pretty much over unless something crazy happens.
Right.
The NFL, MLB, and now the NBA, and it happens the most in the NBA, are wide open. So it's really exciting to see. And, I love to pick the Jazz. I think that they're great. And I think they're going to win the first round. They've just been disappointed this year, but I am going to take Phoenix over Boston in the championship is my pick.
Okay. Well, you just need to give me a list of games that I need to watch, because it's not natural for me to watch NBA. It's not my thing, but I do enjoy sports, as we all know, and I will watch it if you tell me that it's going to be a good game and worth my time.
Well, I thought the Jazz game's going to be good last year, and they lost by like 35. So don't always listen to me about what's going to be good. You can never tell, but there's going to be a lot of good series, and that's kind of what it is. And I think that Boston Nets series is going to be very exciting to watch. And everyone's talking about the Jazz Mavericks. That's the 4 or 5 matchup. So those are usually always very close.
Okay. So when you say series, I truly don't know how the NBA tournament works. So okay. How many games, like just tell me.
It's like the baseball. It's a 7-game series.
Okay. That's easy.
So except for the, and they are similar to baseball too, where they're having a play in right now. So it starts Saturday, but they do the 7 seed plays the 8 seed, the winner gets in, the 9 seed plays the 10 seed, and then the winner of that plays the loser, and they get the last playoff team. So they kind of a similar play-in tournament.
Yes. Okay.
And that was a great idea because it keeps more teams interested who are like, oh, we're out of the playoffs, we're not going to start our guys. So it's a very cool structure, and it's honestly almost exactly the MLB at this point.
Okay, that's great. I can remember that. I got the MLB.
Except unlike baseball, which is but home court advantage is such a big deal in basketball. Playing at home is such a big deal. Where like it basically makes up like probably at least 3 or 4 points. Where in baseball, I feel like it's kind of a crapshoot. It's more the pitcher than if you're at home.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, being at home in baseball is definitely more fun, but it's so big. The area is so big that it really doesn't, and people will travel for baseball. I travel for baseball. Like, basketball is like, if you're at the home court and you get a ticket in that room, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the only benefit of baseball is you might know the park a little bit better. So if the right field or left field's a little bit shorter, that's kind of the only advantage. I don't think the fans are as big of a deal in baseball as they are in basketball. Because like you said, it's big, and like I feel like the court is like you're kind of just over these people. Like all 30 or 40,000 people are like over them.
I remember the first time I went to a big basketball tournament in an arena, I felt like the court was so small.
Yeah, I know.
I remember it. I was a little girl. I went to a Jacksonville State game with my parents, and I felt like the court was tiny. I felt that way at my first Jacksonville State football game too, because I'd only been at my high school football games. And, you're kind of close to the field, and it looks so big. And then you get in the stadium, and you're sitting up above, and you're looking down at the field, and you can see the whole thing, and it looks so small. I viscerally remember thinking, there's no way that this is the size of a court or a
And you were
field.
one of the 3 people at the Jacksonville State basketball game, so that's even cooler that you were.
Shut up. Go Gamecocks forever. Give me a
Yeah,
break.
tournament team.
Give me,
I
give me a
cheer for them too.
break. Well, you know what time it is, Mark? My favorite time of the podcast. Like we promised last week or a couple weeks ago, we are bringing back the 90s. And this week's 90s topic is one that Mark came up with and yet has nothing to contribute. Maybe something.
I do. I thought of it.
Maybe something at this point, but underrated 90s movies. So let me put this disclaimer out there. I was born in 1991. By the time the 90s were over, I was only 9 years old. So there were a lot of movies that I obviously couldn't watch as a child, but my mom would talk about movies and she would get me to watch them. And so there were 90s movies that were regulars in my house. Now, if we're talking about underrated 90s movies, I basically pulled 2 that I had not heard of until the last year or so.
So it's funny because, and we do this differently, right? Because I watched them all in the 90s. I haven't really watched them recently. You watched a lot more recently. Because
I watched recently.
I was born in 87, so it was kind of more in my time.
Yes. So Mark, give me an underrated 90s movie.
So I have a really underrated one. It's on Disney Plus. You can still watch now too.
Okay.
And you'll love who's in it. So it's called Meet the Deedles. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
Paul Walker is the star of it.
Sold.
Yes. It's this ridiculous, but it was fun. Now, granted, these are in the thing. So I'm kind of doing movies that I remember. Again, I was a kid there. So it was a fun movie. It took place at like one of these major, what's the major national park in America?
Yellowstone?
Yeah, I guess I don't. Yeah, it was one of those things, and like they owned it. It was a ridiculous movie, but I loved it, and I'm gonna rewatch it. But it is on Disney Plus, so please watch it. I think it's good. And then I loved Smart House, Disney Channel original Smart House.
Smart House is not underrated. Smart House is a perfect movie. When they are
That's just underrated because nobody else thinks it's the perfect movie.
Okay, well, it is a perfect
Not to
movie.
you, it's not. I'm saying for the rest, nobody even talks about it anymore.
Okay, well, I loved Smart House. And you know what my favorite part of Smart House was after he threw the party and his dad was coming home and he was hurrying to get the house done and there was trash everywhere. And the house just like ate the trash through the floor and it was all clean. The house cleaned itself up. That was incredible to me.
I like when they made food. It's like, I want this or I want a smoothie, and they would just make it for the house. Would just make it. And isn't it funny that was like 90? I don't even know what year it was, 97, 98, somewhere around there. But it felt like, it's like, oh my gosh, this is a real thing in the future. No. It's not. Like, I don't know why I thought at that point, like, oh, probably like 15 years, this will be a thing.
But I also loved when the little girl was like, she wanted to listen to a song and they put the music video on the wall in her room. And she was listening to that Bewitched song on the music video in her.
C'est la vie. It was C'est la vie, right?
C'est la vie. That was it. Gosh, I remember that. And she was jumping on her bed. I was like, man, this is the dream. Like, I love that.
And okay, so I don't know how to pronounce her name, but I think it's Katie Siegel or Segal, whatever. She's in a bunch of stuff. You want to talk about somebody who has not aged? She was the robot in that movie.
Yes.
She looks
not aged.
Same now. And that was 25 years ago. She's in all this stuff. And yes, hopefully Scotty Scheffler has those genes of not aging when he does that. But
beautiful.
But it's not even that. It's like she looks the same. And like, I don't think it's plastic surgery. A lot of she looks, I just can't imagine somebody looking the same 23 years later. And it's awesome. She does.
Good for her. One of
yes. Okay. What are your? And I was gonna say Saving Silverman, but that I found out it was 2001. But that is the most underrated movie ever by a mile.
Well, okay. So, have you ever heard of the movie Leon the Professional?
No.
Okay, young Natalie Portman stars in it. It's about this guy who I think I saw it a couple years ago. He's like an assassin. It's really, really good. And of course, it would be too dark for me as a 9-year-old. There's no way. But I watched that a couple years ago, and I think about it all the time. It was such a good movie about a character that you didn't really want to think you were going to like, but you really did like him and you were kind of rooting for him, even though he was kind of the bad guy. I love movies like that. I thought that movie was really, really great. Loved that.
I never heard of it. Leon the Professional?
Yes.
Okay.
Look it up.
No, I mean, I believe, okay. So, I mean, that's interesting. 1994. Okay.
Yeah. It was really, really good. And then there's another movie that's kind of sad. It's definitely like a grown-up movie. It's no wonder I hadn't heard of it, but it's called The Last Days of Disco. and it was written and directed by Whit Stillman. And Whit Stillman also wrote this book and movie called Love and Friendship, which was a Jane Austen kind of parody.
Oh,
But
that's Chloe Sevigny in it. I love her.
yes, and Kate Beckinsale.
Okay.
And it's it is sad, but it kind of deals with these young adults growing up. It talks about the literal last days of disco, like the last closing days of Studio 54 in New York. And there's just something about it that even though it's not a happy, uplifting kind of thing, it was fun to watch. I really did enjoy watching it and just kind of seeing what those last days of disco looked like. I think it takes place in the early 80s maybe, but it was about the end of Studio 54 and the ultimate demise of Studio 54, which, again, if you know anything about me, you know that I'm like obsessed with disco. I literally decorate my Christmas tree with disco balls. So I love disco. And I just thought that was a really underrated one that not many people talk about and that I really enjoyed. So
I will say you picked, I haven't heard of either of them. So I feel like that's a good indication they're underrated.
Yes.
I don't think I'm interested in the first one. The Last Days of Disco seems interesting.
Yes, Last Days of Disco is really good, but definitely give them a try because they're both really good movies. Now I was also trying to think, was Face Off in the 90s?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, 97. Yeah.
Talk about a movie that I never want to watch again, but I had the best time watching it.
I was gonna say, I don't think it's underrated. I think if anything, it's overrated. That's
yes, that's why I didn't name it. It's just got
Nicolas Cage, so people love it.
Right. That's why I didn't name it. It's definitely not underrated, yes. But that is a movie that I will never watch again. But I had such a good time watching it because everything, like, I know it's like trying to be serious, I guess, but nothing in it, like everything made me laugh.
It's how I feel about Snakes on a Plane. It was exactly like that. It's like, it was so much fun. I don't think I'd watch it again, but it was so much fun. And one more, I forgot about this, but Mighty Ducks gets its due. Mighty Ducks 3 was a 90s movie that nobody gives the credit to. It is the best one of those three, and everyone writes it off. So I think Mighty Ducks 3 is the most, that's my number one most overrated movie.
I've never seen the
third one. Mighty Ducks 3?
I've seen the first two.
Eden Hall? You've not, oh my gosh. That's on Disney Plus too. Watch that because it's excellence. It's perfect.
Okay. Well, I'm a big Disney Plus girl, and right now I actually just got Apple Plus TV to watch Severance, which if you haven't watched Severance, you've got to watch it. It's incredible. But then I got sucked back into the morning show because Reese is my girl. Yes. I love me some Reese Witherspoon. So a non-90s recommendation, but if you haven't watched it, watch Severance. Maybe me and Mark will talk about it one of these days when I won't be giving away any spoilers, and I feel like the whole world has had time to watch it. But it's one of those shows that you'll wake up in the morning thinking about it in an eerie kind of way. It's very good. Mark, you got anything to add before we peace out?
That's good. I think good show. Enjoyed it. We'll talk next week.
Yeah, and not a lot of insults toward me. My pride remains intact. We'll see you guys next week.
Just the sweatshirt.
Yeah, just the sweatshirt. Classic.